I'm Danny Flexen. Welcome to the latest edition of Seconds Out Reflections. I'm here every Monday, 4:30 p.m, talk about the boxing action that took place over the weekend. And while I realise that Jake Paul has made a lot of the headlines over the last couple of days, I'm actually going to be focusing on a show that I watched the vast majority of, which was the Matchroom event in Manchester on Saturday night. And specifically regarding the main event between Dereck Chisora and Joseph Parker, a rematch from their not bad fight 7 months previously, but this one really was much better, more exciting. Chisora dropped 3 times, never stopped trying to turn the fight around. It did look on occasion that he maybe buzzed Parker and he had a shot at changing the momentum of the contest, but Parker under Andy Lee put in a very professional performance, mixed it up when he had to, probably more than Lee would have liked, but overall controlled the pace and distance in which the contest was fought, and well deserved his victory. Less said about the scorecards the better, particularly the 114-112, which gave Chisora 6 rounds out of the 12, Lee 5 and 1 drawn, from what I could work out, although we've yet to see at this point the next, on Monday morning in fact, the official scorecards. I'm sure they'll pop up eventually, but 114-112 seemed very hard to comprehend given what we'd just seen play out before us. As I said, Chisora never stopped trying. He certainly won a few rounds, but not 6, not even 5, so very difficult to see that, and more kind of question marks regarding UK officiating, unfortunately. But a enthralling fight, the right winner, let's grasp the positives. And Parker, not as cautious as he's been in the past, as Andy Lee had promised pre-fight, taking more risks, putting his punches together better, and keeping his fitness and his conditioning until late into the fight as well. He wasn't able to get Chisora out of there, but very few have taken him out in that manner. I know Dillian Whyte did right at the end with a great punch at the end of a long, gruelling fight. Tyson Fury forced a retirement, and David Hayes, the only one that's really just blasted Chisora out with pure power. So he's a very tough, durable man, and that's kind of what I want to focus on this week, is that for all the compliments we give Chisora, however much we love to watch him, and he is a cult hero and a deserved one. He's given his life to the sport, always in entertaining fights, always in entertaining press conferences, never mind the fights themselves. I feel it's time for him to call it a day and retire from boxing. In fact, I feel that time was some number of fights ago. Now, I understand when people say the only person that should decide when to walk away is the boxer themselves, and I sympathise with that view to a large extent. I know Dave Coldwell, Chisora's trainer, said that after the fight on Saturday night, and Chisora himself later on social media promised to be back in the summer of next year. But for me, when a fighter needs saving from themselves in a fight, we praise a corner team for retiring their fighter rather than seeing them take a horrible knockout or further punishment. We praise a referee who steps in at the right time rather than let a boxer take too many shots. And I think there's a case to be made that the same is true of their career as a whole. Chisora is a grown man, he can make his own decisions, but sometimes you're too close to the situation yourself to make a reasonable, well-informed decision. Chisora's a warrior, War Chisora isn't just a moniker. He's always fought in that way, and more worryingly, because he's had a lot of hard fights, even the ones he's won. Look at the Carlos Takam fight. He won that fight with a massive right, or 2 massive right hands, one to change the course of the fight and one to officially end it. But before that, he was taking an absolute pasting. He was always in the fight, but he was taking a heavy amount of punishment. So even the fights he's won, he's taken a lot of stick. And also in the gym, because from what I hear, Chisora has always taken sparring incredibly seriously, almost as if it's a real fight. A lot of young heavyweights have got in with Chisora, and I've spoken to him off the record, obviously, and they've been shocked by the pace he sets and how hard he fights within sparring, because as veteran trainers will say, you can't win sparring, but Chisora goes in to make a real statement even when there's no money being paid. So you can imagine how hard he fights when there is cash and pride and everything else on the line. Now, as much as I'd like to say, look, you know, it should just be up to him, and if medically he's sound to fight and he passes his board medicals, it should all be fine. It's getting to a point now, and I felt this in the second half of the Parker fight, it's a little uncomfortable, and maybe it's because I'm squeamish as I'm getting older, I don't know, but it's getting, for me, a bit uncomfortable to watch Chisora take the number of shots he takes, and to square that, and to come to terms with that without thinking about his life after boxing. Now there's a flip side to that he may well be mentally and emotionally, he might find himself a bit lost without the sport, without the daily rigours of training and getting up for that big entrance and the crowd chanting his name and all that kind of stuff, and I completely understand that. But what's his quality of life going to be like later in life, even now with the punishment he's already taken? If he takes another 5 fights, another 3 fights even, but they're hard, gruelling 12-rounders that go late or go the distance, how tough is it going to be for him later on? We won't know until it's arguably too late. You know, the amount of... I think most people will tell you, most kind of scientists, doctors, studies that have been carried out into CTE and things like that, will tell you that it's that accumulation of punishment, both in sparring and in the ring, that causes those sort of problems later in life. It's not so much getting wiped out, you know, having the metaphorical glass jaw. It's not that, because if you're not taking massive punishment, you'll get taken out with one clean shot. It's not healthy to be knocked unconscious, of course it's not, but it does mean that the fight's over at that point and you don't go another 5, 6, however many rounds of taking stick. So for someone like Chisora, who's very durable, that could kind of be his undoing. It's won him fights that maybe otherwise he should have lost, like Takam for example, and kept him in fights that he maybe otherwise should have been wiped out in. But the flip side of that is he's taken a huge amount of punches to the head over the years, and it's uncomfortable. We don't want to talk about it too much in boxing because we love the sport, we follow it. You know, we don't want it taken away from us, and we don't want to feel guilty for watching it. But there needs to come a point with veteran fighters certainly, and I saw someone talked about Danny Williams, former British champion and world title challenger not too long ago, still plying his trade at an advanced age, but I think he's kind of got to a point where he takes these big money fights on foreign soil and he gets out of there as early as he can. You know, he doesn't stick around to take huge amounts of punishment, but he was already slurring his words when he was still close to the top. So someone like that, I think, needs saving from themselves, and I think in this case so does Chisora. He's made a huge amount of money from the sport. I don't know how much of it he saved or invested, you know, I'm not prying into his finances, but he has made a huge amount of money. He's been in a lot of major events. The latest one again, this one on DAZN. He's been on plenty of Sky Sports box office events. So he's made that pay-per-view cash as well. Everyone loves him. I'm sure you know, there'd be opportunities for him after boxing, still within the sport, but outside of active competition, whether that be managing fighters or doing some punditry, that kind of thing. You know, he can be quite articulate. He is a very intelligent man, despite sometimes appearances to the contrary. But I think the main thing is that he's addicted to it, not the money and not but more the actual fight itself, the war, if you like, to you know, coin a phrase. He loves being in there, exchanging leather and finding out who's the better man, and then sharing a burger with him afterwards, as we saw with Joseph Parker. And while I admire that, and you know, maybe we could all be a bit more Chisora, I do worry for him going forward, and I'd like to see him at this point call it a day. And if he's not willing to, I'd like to see the people around him at least encourage him to do so, and you know, make a reasoned argument as to why. But yeah, credits Joseph Parker. He can move on now, former WBO champion. He could, once the heavyweight kind of scene has sorted itself out, he'll be in line for another shot. I know Eddie Hearn said afterwards he thinks maybe Parker against Hrgovic in a world title eliminator. I have no issue with that fight. I think that would be a really good test for Hrgovic, and also for Parker to see how rejuvenated he is under Andy Lee. Still just 29 years old, Joseph Parker, although it feels like he's been around forever. And before I go, just a quick kind of mention of some of the fights on the undercard. Lerone Richards beat Carlos Gongora, outboxed him for the most part, split decision. I thought he won relatively clearly for the IBO title at super middleweight. So that was impressive from him. Zelfa Barrett won his IBF super featherweight eliminator against Bruno Tarimo. Good performance there. I missed Alan Babbage, unfortunately, because it was on the early part of the show, and I was still putting my son to bed or reading him his story or whatever. But yeah, so Alan Babbage apparently struggled before finding the punches to wipe him out. So we shall now see what he does next. People honour him to get a test, but after a bit of a reality check on Saturday night, maybe the expectations will be managed now. But yeah, the main thrust of my piece today is that I'd like Chisora to seriously consider walking away. As much as it would rob us, the fans, of some great entertainment, I think sometimes you have to prioritise a fighter's health and well-being, particularly later in life. Too many horror stories around, the most recent of which was Donald Curry, of course, to not think about these things now. But let me know what you think. Comments below. Yeah, do you think he should call it a day? Do you think, it's his own choice regardless of the implications? It's always got to be up to the man himself. I'd like to know, and I'll respond to some of the comments. I'll be back probably next Monday. I'm just trying to work out what the days are. That's the day after Boxing Day. I'm not going to promise I might do it on the Tuesday, but it'll be 4:30 PM either way. And I will do a Flexpectations this Thursday of 4:30 PM, probably looking ahead to what we can expect in 2022. Really appreciate your time as always, and I'll see you all soon.